This Kristaps Porzingis injury update is extremely worrying for Celtics fans as the Latvian center was just diagnosed with plantar fasciitis. I'll be getting into exactly what that means for Porzingis and how it might impact the Celtics this season, plus diving a little bit into Porzingis' injury history. And we also got a brutal note on the schedule this season. You guys may have seen it, but I found something online that you guys are definitely not going to like, so stick around for this edition of Celtics Digest. And as we get into this edition of Celtics Digest, a quick reminder to hit subscribe if you're one of the hundreds of people watching who hasn't hit it yet and you like the videos. Hit subscribe, you won't regret it. But yeah, we got a pretty worrying Kristaps update. Now look, we all know Kristaps Porzingis is very injury prone. We all knew that as Celtics fans when the Celtics traded for him. We knew he probably wasn't going to get a full 82-game season, but what we maybe didn't think was going to happen was that he was going to have an injury so fast. So Boston Celtics center Kristaps Porzingis will spend the next 4 to 6 weeks rehabbing his right foot after being diagnosed with plantar fasciitis, the team announced Wednesday. Of course, they got him in the Washington Wizards trade. The foot injury forced Porzingis to announce Tuesday he won't compete for Latvia at the upcoming FIBA Basketball World Cup. So not only as Celtics fans is this brutal, but this is also brutal of any fans of Team Latvia who were looking to have a really competitive team this year with Davison Bertans hopefully ready to play for a good chunk of the tournament. Kristaps Porzingis, obviously, fresh new team, maybe he's motivated to show what he has, but unfortunately he's just not healthy. Now, plantar fasciitis, a lot of NBA players have had this in the past. In fact, I think just last offseason, Joel Embiid was diagnosed with the same thing. It's something that plagues a lot of big men like Pau Gasol, Joakim Noah, maybe guys not quite Porzingis' size, but big guys nonetheless. They have this problem with their feet, right? They're moving around a lot. They're very heavy, especially when they're running up and down the court. But what does plantar fasciitis exactly mean for Porzingis? Well, it can mean multiple things. Some people deal with plantar fasciitis for months and months. Some people can play through the pain after just a couple weeks. It's something that we'll just have to monitor with Porzingis, but his injury history definitely doesn't do him any favors. Last season he played 65 games, and his potential is there, right? Like, look at these numbers. As Celtics fans, we see 23 points a game, 8.5 boards, 2.7 assists on absurdly efficient shooting. I guess 49.8 from the field is not necessarily the best when it comes to 7'3" centers, but consider again that Kristaps Porzingis takes a lot of his shots from the outside. That's really good. But again, that's 65 games. That's what's worrying. Look at his career. His first season, 72 games out of the 82 possible, with a few injuries here and there. 66 in his second season, and since then, he's never topped 57 games. I guess since last season, 65 games, but he's only topped 66 twice in his career, and that was his first 2 seasons. So last season was his first relatively healthy season in a while. But when I say relatively healthy, I really mean it. Because let's just take a look at Kristaps Porzingis' injury history over the past. These are just the injuries in the past calendar year, according to Fox Sports. Of course, foot injury, August 16, 2023. That's his plantar fasciitis. An illness in March, whatever. We're not going to count illnesses. Knee injury back in February of this year. Ankle injury back in January. A rib injury just 11 days before the ankle injury. Illness, whatever, that's fine. Back injury, December 13th of last year. Ankle injury, December 8th. Just 5 days before the back injury, and then a groin injury back in November of last year. And then the next injuries before that were not until like February or something. But this is just the past calendar year. If you count up non-illness injuries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 injuries that are non-illnesses just in the past calendar year alone. I want to say I'm not concerned because, we'll have a long regular season. Kristaps Porzingis, he'll bounce back. Plantar fasciitis is probably not something that's going to keep him out, at least until the start of the season. But it is worrying. It's concerning. Honestly, if you read this news and you don't get a little bit of a knot in your stomach and you don't get a little bit worried about Porzingis, I think you're crazy, right? Because, again, that's something we knew about him, and he's getting injured already. Do I think this will harm him going into this season? No, I don't think so. I think in general, if you look at injury history of plantar fasciitis with a lot of players, I think that in general, they're fine, right? Eventually, they're fine, right? Some people like Noah did have their career maybe shortened a little bit, but it wasn't because of the plantar fasciitis necessarily. So it's something that's not going to bother him going into the season. But again, it's losing valuable offseason time. It's an injury that is maybe something that could end up nagging him for long-term prospects. So am I upset right now? I'm a little upset right now. Do I think I'll get over it by the time the season starts? Yeah, I think so. But all the same, you got to we'll try and stay positive here at Celtics Digest. We're going to try and stay positive. Kristaps Porzingis will be fine. But let me know what your thoughts are on this injury in the comments down below because I'm very curious. The only other thing I wanted to talk about today was a brutal bit of schedule news. And, we're talking about we want our guys to play every game. We want them to be healthy. Well, this isn't going to help. So a nice user on Reddit by the name of Squim Jim, awesome name, posted a little bit of a note about the Celtics schedule, something that I definitely looked over when I looked at it. From February 27th to April 14th, that's a span of 47 days, right at the end of the season. The Celtics played 25 games in 47 days. Now, I know old school basketball fans say that is nothing, right? I mean, that's what, just a couple back-to-backs here and there. And while that's true, with the new age of the NBA, with the amount of time guys are resting, to have that kind of schedule, especially if you're fighting for a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed or whatever the Celtics are fighting for next year, that stretch can be brutal because not every team's going to have that. That's over an average of a game every 2 nights. You have very, very, very few rest days, and more than, I think there's only 1, maybe 2 periods in there where you have 2 rest days. There might be more than that. I might have counted wrong, but still, that's a lot of games in a short amount of time heading right into the playoffs. And if you have a guy like Porzingis, you're going to want to sit him maybe some of those games just to preserve him for the playoffs. And if you're in the middle of you're trying to compete for a certain seed, trying to get a certain matchup, that can be absolutely brutal for your team. And look, we know that these Celtics guys are going to play through whatever they can, but let's not pretend that this team is one of the healthiest in the league. Like, Tatum is pretty all right, but Brown has had a little bit of his injury history, of course. Al Horford is not getting any younger. Rob Williams has had knee issues, and those are going to plague him probably for his whole career, so he's going to need to rest some games. Kristaps Porzingis we just talked about, so there are a lot of guys in the Celtics, also Malcolm Brogdon, by the way, right? A lot of Celtics guys who are probably going to miss some time. A lot of Celtics guys who might not be able to be going into the playoffs fully healthy if that end stretch of the regular season has anything to say about it, right? Because 50 games in 47 days, while not completely insane, not completely out of the realm of the possibility that we've seen over the past 15, 20 years, it's still rough. For a team like the Celtics, specifically with the roster makeup that we have right now, with the amount of injury-prone players, it's tough. And again, you look at the Bucks' schedule, I think they have a few more extra off days, and even those few extra off days can make such a big difference for the team, right? You give Porzingis, you're probably going to rest him on every back-to-back, right, at that point in the season. That's assuming he's not injured already, right? You rest him on every back-to-back, maybe the same with Brogdon. You alternate who rests, who doesn't, and maybe Brown or Tatum if they have lingering injuries. You want to rest them, I should say, but you might not have a choice. If it comes down to the playoff seeding, maybe 1 seed versus 2 seed doesn't necessarily matter too much, but if the Celtics end up having some bad luck and are in a fight to have, because even that 1 seed does matter, right? If you make the conference finals, let's say it's Bucks Celtics fighting for 1-2, you make the conference finals, TD Garden having home court, I mean, I know that hasn't necessarily benefited the Celtics as much as we would have wanted in the past few years, but it is going to matter. But even if it's not 1-2, even if it's 3-4 or something like that, getting that higher seed is going to prove very, very valuable. So this is definitely something to be a little concerned about, definitely something to watch. Great job, NBA, Celtics of all teams, of course, get this kind of schedule down the stretch. Maybe not something to be totally worked up about, but definitely something to take note of because we're probably going to see some interesting injury and rest schedules down the final stretch. But that'll do it for this news edition of Celtics Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 100 subs. If you could hit subscribe right now, we'd really appreciate you. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. We'll catch you in the next one.